People usually say that America is a country of freedom, of opportunities, and a land for everyone. So, what makes American that great? Firstly, let's hear the people talk about their country's culture and find out what is American culture.
Cheeseburger.
A melting pot.
Jesus, McDonald's, KFC. Big trucks.
Living in the city and drinking coffee.
This is American culture right here. Gambling your money away.
Slutty girls and dirty boys.
Barbecue!
The best culture there is in the world. I mean, come on.
Melting pot! Yeah!
That's the big question. What exactly is American culture? We used to think that there was a big monolithic thing that we could say, this is America. And it was always upper-class white people, white males, that was America, that they defined the terms. But now we look at America as the diverse land in which it is. It's the interaction between a myriad of cultures that kind of form together.
American culture, I think, is just simply the way that Americans go about everyday life.
American culture is about new frontiers. People coming over from Europe, from Asia, to this new land, settling it, being very inventive, being creative. Even the slaves who came over to America gave us the blues music and jazz and invented the banjo.
American culture is national pride.
Our education system as far as college is not the best.
I think American culture is a lot of opportunities, diversity. Like Denise said, like we are able to dream and be able to do different things.
Oh, well, American culture to me is a melting pot.
American culture is doing what you want to do when you want to do it. It's playing football with a bunch of friends, playing basketball, even if it's just a pickup game, or just going out in the woods and shooting some deer.
To me, American culture is getting together with family and eating food and having a good time.
Mix of everything. You kind of get the best of everything in the world, every culture, everything.
American culture is a collection of a bunch of different things. It really depends on where you're from and who you're from.
So, the United States is one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world. Because of this, just as cultures from around the world have influenced American culture, today American culture influences the world. And here is a brief overview of the culture of the United States. The American government.
Have you ever wondered who has the authority to make laws or punish people who break them? When we think of power in the United States, we usually think of the president, but he does not act alone. In fact, he is only one piece of the power puzzle, and for very good reason. When the American Revolution ended in 1783, the United States government was in a state of change. The Founding Fathers knew that they did not want to establish another country that was ruled by a king. So the discussions were centered on having a strong and fair national government that protected individual freedoms and did not abuse its power. When the new Constitution was adopted in 1787, the structure of the infant government of the United States called for 3 separate branches, each with their own powers, and a system of checks and balances. This would ensure that no one branch would ever become too powerful, because the other branches would always be able to check the power of the other 2. These branches work together to run the country and set guidelines for us all to live by. The legislative branch is described in Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution. Many people feel that the Founding Fathers put this branch in the document first because they thought it was the most important. The legislative branch is comprised of 100 U.S. senators and 435 members in the U.S. House of Representatives. This is better known as the U.S. Congress. Making laws is a primary function of the legislative branch, but it is also responsible for approving federal judges and justices, passing the national budget, and declaring war. Each state gets 2 senators and some number of representatives depending on how many people live in that state. The executive branch is described in Article 2 of the Constitution. The leaders of this branch of government are the President and Vice President, who are responsible for enforcing the laws that Congress sets forth. The President works closely with a group of advisors known as the Cabinet. These appointed helpers assist the President in making important decisions within their area of expertise, such as defense, the Treasury, and Homeland Security. The executive branch also appoints government officials, commands the armed forces, and meets with leaders of other nations. All that combined is a lot of work for a lot of people. In fact, the executive branch employs over 4 million people to get everything done. The third branch of the U.S. government is the judicial branch and is detailed in Article 3. This branch is comprised of all the courts in the land, from the federal district courts to the U.S. Supreme Court. These courts interpret our nation's laws and punish those who break them. The highest court, the Supreme Court, settles disputes among states, hears appeals from state and federal courts, and determines if federal laws are constitutional. There are 9 justices on the Supreme Court, and unlike any other job in our government, Supreme Court justices are appointed for life, or for as long as they want to stay. Our democracy depends on an informed citizenry, so it is our duty to know how it works and what authority each branch of government has over its citizens. Besides voting, chances are that sometime in your life you will be called upon to participate in your government, whether it is to serve on a jury, testify in court, or petition your congressperson to pass or defeat an idea for a law. By knowing the branches, who runs them, and how they work together, you can be involved, informed, and intelligent.
The elections of the President and Congress. The President and Congress are chosen by separate elections. The Congress and President can be controlled by the different political party. Members of the House of Representatives serve 2 years, Senators serve 6 years, and the President serves 4 years. Presidential elections are held every 4 years on the first Tuesday in November. President is elected by electoral college, who turn out vote for vice people. It's possible for someone to become the president without receiving the more individual vote. Until the 1930s, governments were dominated by business. So business were free from interference from government. The role of special interest groups or parts of American society have a special interest. They look to the government to fulfill. Often they try to put pressure on the government to do what they want them to do. More major race, professions, minorities, and lobbyists in Washington. The political landscape in the 2000s were rubbish. Americans tend to support Democratic Party. Republican Party is strongly supported by business. The number of independents is growing. Neither Republicans or Democrats. Traditionally, there are only 2 parties. Independents are viewed as retraction.
Ethnic and racial diversity in the United States. Ralph Waldo Emerson, he was born 1803 and to 1882. He traces saw in this continent the entry of Irish, Germans, Swedes, Polish, and all the European tribes of the Africans and of the Polynesians will construct a new race, a new religion, a new state. The population of the United States includes a large variety of ethnic groups coming from many races,
nationalities, and religions. The process by which these many groups have been made a part of a common cultural life which commonly shares values is called assimilation. Since 1776, an enormous amount of racial and ethnic assimilation has taken place in the United States, yet some groups continue to feel a strong sense of separateness from the culture as a whole. Many of these groups are really bicultural. People of Hispanic origins were on the North American continent before settlers arrived from Europe in the early 1600s. In Florida and the Southwest, Spanish and Latin American settlements were established centuries before the 13 colonies joined together to run the United States in the late 1600s. Immigrants are greater numbers, the money and the political power in the new nation, and therefore its majority should define what the dominant culture would be. At that time of the American Revolutions, the white population was largely English in origins, Protestant and middle class, just as Americans are sometimes referred to as WASP, white Anglo-Saxons, Protestants. However, many people now consider this an insulting term. The process of assimilation in the United States has been much more successful for white ethnic groups than for non-white ethnic groups. Of the non-white ethnic groups, Americans, Africans, the process were part in the votes of the immigrants in order to give themselves a monopoly of political power in many larger cities. It practice destroyed competition for political office, which Americans view as an important tradition in politics just as it were in other facets of American life. Despite its criticisms, many scholars believe that the political process performed an important function in the late 19th and early 20th century. They have to assimilate large number of new immigrants into the large American culture by finding them jobs and housing in return for their political support. Later, the process also had the sons and daughters of these immigrants find employment, but the second generation usually had the advantage of growing up speaking English. The fact that the United States had a rapidly expanded economy at the turn of the century made it possible for these new immigrants, often with the help of the process, to better their standard of living in the United States. The process of assimilation in the United States has been much more successful for white ethnic groups than for non-white ethnic groups. Americans of African descent have had the greatest difficulty in becoming assimilated into the large culture of African Americans were brought to the United States against their will to be sold as slaves, except for the American Indian tribes who inhabited the United States before the first white settlers arrived. All the ethnic groups came to America voluntarily, most as immigrants who wanted to better their living conditions. The southern states in which black slavery became the basis of the economy, and the northern states which chose to make slavery against the law. Abraham Lincoln was able to become president of the United States by appealing to both the white idealists who saw slavery as an injustice to African Americans and to the larger number of northern whites who saw slavery as a threat to themselves. Lincoln's argument was that if black slavery continued to spread westward, white freedom and equality would be returned. Lincoln also believed that basic ideas such as freedom and equality of opportunity had to apply to all people, black and white, or they would not last as basic American values. Although slavery was abolished in the 1860s, its legacies continued and African Americans were not really assimilated into the larger American culture. Most remained in the South, where they were not allowed to vote and were legally segregated from white. Black children were not allowed to attend white public school. For example, many received an inferior education that did not give them an equal opportunity to compete in the white-dominated society. Many farmers, slaves, and their families became caught in a cycle of poverty that continued of generations. Although conditions were much worse in the segregated South, blacks continued to be the victims of strong racial prejudice in the North as well. The civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s. In 1954, that recently segregated public school did not provide equal educational opportunities for black Americans and were therefore illegal. Black leaders brought out the United States were greatly encouraged by these decisions. They decided to try to end racial segregation in all areas of American life. The civil rights laws of the 1960s helped to bring about a significant degree of assimilation of blacks into the larger American culture. Most important, the laws eventually helped to reduce the amount of white prejudice toward black people in all parts of the country. A federal program called affirmative actions required employers to actively seek black workers and universities to recruit black students. As a result of the civil rights law and affirmative action, the number of Americans attending the nation's colleges and universities, holding elected public office, and earning higher incomes increases dramatically in the late 1960s and 1970s. The civil rights laws also advances the rights of women, and these laws have reinforced the idea of equality of opportunity for all Americans. However, there is a paradox. Today, immigrants with all kinds of background and skill levels find their way to the United States. Some of them are highly educated and they may find employment in fields such as technology, medicine, and science. All may come from poor rural or urban areas and have a limited education. It is important to remember that the dominant culture and its value system, established by the early settlers, had its roots in white Protestant Western Europe. Millions of immigrants came from Eastern and Southern Europe, bringing cultural traditions perceived by the dominant culture as quite different. Americans had decided that it was time to close the borders to mass immigrations, and the number of the new immigrants slowed to a trickle. The United States made important changes in its immigration laws, allowing many more immigrants to come, and entirely eliminating the other laws by large number favor of white immigrants. But As a result, the United States now takes in large numbers of new immigrants who are non-white and non-European. The majority are from Asia, Latin America, and the Caribbean. In addition to the large number of legal immigrants, for the first time, the United States has a significant number of immigrants without legal documentations. Many Americans see wonderful benefits for their country. Ben Waterberg, a respected expert on American culture, believes that the new immigrations will be offered help to the nations. He just said will give the nation rich influence and appeal to the rest of the world during the 21st century. Perhaps the United States will be described not as meeting pot or a salad bowl, but as a mosaic, a picture made of many tiny bits of different colors. If one looks closely at the nation, the individuals of different color and ethnic groups are still distinct and recognizable, but together they create a picture that is uniquely American.
Competition is seen not only a value itself, but also the means by each other's basic Americans. Competition protects the freedom of the individual by ensuring that there is no monopoly of the power. Most wealthy Americans have achieved their wealth through successful business. Americans prefer their business in farming because it offers more opportunities to get rich. Business is seen as benefiting in the whole nation. Through competition, everyone can get rich. Successful business people often become heroes to the public. American values on their purest form. The entrepreneur was seen as rugged individualist, good example of equality of opportunity. CEO, Chief Executive Officer, have power and wealth, but are not generally seen as heroes. Many CEOs have abused their businesses, their managers, and their employees. The image has changed over time, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, depending on the political climate. Now, American business has become globalized. The US is the largest market in the world. The US is also a producer, but is finding it hard to compete with cheap French labor. Traditionally, American business was dominated by white males. Recently, more women have entered the workforce. Now is 50%. Few females are in senior positions. Women are generally received less pay.
About education, the idea of equality of opportunity. In 1825, Americans established their basic system of public school, the educational ladder. Americans view their public school system as an education ladder. The American public schools are free and open to all of the elementary and the secondary level. The public university track tuition and have a competitive entrance requirements. Educating the individual. American schools tend to put more emphasis on developing critical thinking skills than they do on acquiring quality of facts. A reflection of the American values of individual freedom and self-reliance. So about the racial equality and education. After the Civil War in the 1860s, the Southern state developed a social and legal system which segregated from the former black slave from the white population in all public facilities, including school. So we talk about the increasing responsibility of public school, about the new immigrant children. Many of the children come from countries where they haven't had strong educational preparation and their academic skills are below grade level. So about the language, 5 to 7 years in order for them to be able to compete with the English-speaking American children. More than 400 languages spoken in the United States, 100 and more different languages are spoken by children in their schools. About the movement standard, the performance of American students are not so good in comparison with others from different countries, so that the government has set a national goal, which means that the students have to take part in annual tests with the hope to improve national performance. So we will talk about the advantages and disadvantages of. So as a result of the standard movement, there are some advantages such as to experience different types of traditions and environments and to begin vocational training. On the other hand, there are some disadvantages can be caused from the standard movement. It is individuals' personal identity, because some cultures have very different values that can influence students. It can be a factor to the caste family conflicts. Sports and American values. Organized sports are seen by Americans as an inspiring example of equality of opportunity in action. In sports, people of different races and economic backgrounds get an equal chance to excel. Many Americans believe that learning how to win in sports helps develop the habits necessary to compete successfully in later life. Amateur athletes associated with schools and colleges are valued for teaching young people traditional American values. Professional sports, in addition to their profits and entertainment purpose, are seen as providing an example of inspiring the young to take part in organized sport. Competition carried to an extreme. Although sports in the U.S. are glorified by many, there are others who are especially critical of the power of sport to corrupt when certain things are carried to excess. There is, however, also a tradition of honorable defeat in the American sports. When the idea of winning in sports is carried to excess, however, honorable competition can turn into disorder and violence. There are some who criticize this violence in American sport, particularly in the football, which is probably American favorite spectator sports. Another criticism of professional sports is that the players and the team owners get too much money, while fans have to pay more and more for tickets to the game. Another problem facing organized sports is the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Recreation, a time for self-improvement. Unlike organized sports, what is generally called recreation in the U.S., not expected to encourage competition. For this reason, it is much more spontaneous and serves the individual needs beyond the competitive world of work. Some Americans prefer recreation that requires a high level of physical activity. Physical fitness has become a way of life for many. A number of people regularly work out at sport clubs. Health and fitness. Not all Americans are physically fit or even try to be. The overall population is becoming overweight due to poor eating habits and a sedentary lifestyle. Government studies estimate that less than half of Americans exercise in their leisure time. After smoking, obesity was the number 2 preventable cause of death in the U.S. The government began a campaign to urge its people to lose weight and get more exercise. Many Americans are low-fat, high-carbohydrate foods and gained weight. Then, in the early 2000s, high-protein and low-carbohydrate diets became popular. Another factor is Americans' love of fast food. Although the fast food industry is offering salads on its menu, most Americans still prefer junk food. The impact of television. Marilyn Monroe, a movie star from the 1950s and the 1960s, will be overweight by today's media standard. TV shows, movies, and TV commercials feature actresses who are very slender, so that many teenage girls have become insecure about their bodies and so obsessed with losing weight that some develop eating disorder. Another irony is that although television seems to promote the image of slender, physically fit people, the more people watching TV, the less likely they are to exercise. TV has a strong effect on the activity level of many Americans. Some people spend much of their free time lying on the couch, watching TV and eating junk food, which call it cold potato. One effect of watching so much TV seems to be a shortening of children's attention span. Some of the most popular TV programs feature their characters in stories about sex and violence on the moral values of the young. The impact of the Internet. There is a debate about whether the Internet should be regulated by the federal government. On the one hand, there have been instances where, although have met children or teenagers over the Internet and have persuaded them to meet in person. On the other hand, many Internet users believe that government regulation could threaten the growth and vitality of the Internet. Many people are happy that technology has made it possible for them to communicate with just about anyone, anywhere. However, this 24/7 access had a huge impact on leisure time and Americans' ability to relax.